You pour it thinking it's pure. But behind that golden shimmer, most olive oils on store shelves aren't what they claim. In multiple lab tests across the US and Europe, more than half of extra virgin bottles failed basic purity standards, some diluted with cheaper seed oils, others long past harvest date. Labels promise cold-pressed and Italian, yet many were bottled thousands of miles away under dim warehouse lights. What used to be a sacred craft of patience and sunlight has turned into an industrial shortcut, faster, cheaper, and emptier. Even the most trusted names are cutting corners, betting you'll never notice. In this video, we'll uncover 5 olive oil brands you should never buy again, and 2 that still protect the honesty and flavor real olive oil was meant to have. Stay until the end. Truth like oil always rises. Number 1. Bertolli. It sat once on nearly every kitchen shelf, a bottle that meant Italy, warmth, and trust. Bertolli wasn't just olive oil. It was the feeling of something pure, the flavor that turned a plate of pasta into sundae. The curved green bottle, the golden hue under kitchen light, the red crest promising authenticity, it all looks so honest. But the story sealed inside that bottle has drifted far from the grove. Over the last decade, Bertolli's parent company, Diolio, faced multiple lawsuits in the United States. The claims were serious oils labeled extra virgin that failed purity test, bottles stamped imported from Italy, even though much of the oil came from Spain, Greece, or Tunisia. The company eventually settled and adjusted its labeling. But for millions who once trusted that name, the damage ran deeper than a fine or a slogan change. It was a bruise on memory, the kind that doesn't fade. And it wasn't just legal lines on paper. Walk down any grocery aisle and you'll see Bertolli glistening in clear glass. It looks beautiful, almost noble. But that same light slowly breaks the oil's chemistry sunlight, and fluorescent glare degrade its antioxidants, flattening the taste long before you twist the cap. Olive oil needs darkness. It needs silence, cool air, and time. But global shelves prefer display over protection. What once aged steadily in wooden barrels is now filtered, blended, and shipped at industrial speed. A farmer in Puglia told a reporter real oil hates travel. It wants to die near the tree. He laughed when he said it, but there was sadness too. Because the longer the distance from grove to bottle, the more soul is lost in transit. Bertolli, like so many once authentic names, chased scale and in doing so, traded depth for reach. Even flavor tells the story. The old bitterness, that peppery bite at the back of your throat, gone. What remains is safe, mild, and forgettable. A chef in New Jersey once described it perfectly. It coats the tongue but leaves no trace of the land. That line stayed with me. It captures what mass production can never replicate: the taste of place, the fingerprint of sunlight. Today, Bertolli still sells millions of bottles worldwide. The logo still carries Italian pride, but if you pour a spoonful and close your eyes, the truth is quieter. The grove is gone, the wind, the soil, the bite, all muted under marketing polish. Even heritage can lose its harvest. And sometimes the saddest thing isn't that the oil changed, it's that we didn't notice when it did. Number 2. Carapelli. If Bertolli lost its soul to scale, Carapelli lost it to beauty. The bottle itself could stand in a museum, slender neck, sculpted glass gold-green shimmer, catching the light like an old Italian painting. It's one of those products that seduces before it's even opened. You lift it and it feels luxurious, heavier than most. But the illusion starts to fade the moment you pour. The oil runs too thin. The scent is faint, a trace of hay instead of grass, a suggestion of almond where there used to be bite. It glides on the tongue smoothly but leaves nothing behind. No warmth, no pepper, no echo of the grove. What used to be a living taste now feels like a photograph of one. When you drizzle it on bread, the color doesn't cling the way it once did. It looks polished, almost cosmetic. That's the present. The past was different. Years ago, Carapelli oil burned slightly at the back of your throat. A good burn, the kind that meant antioxidants were still alive and the olives hadn't been overfiltered. The aroma used to fill a kitchen green, bitter, earthy like crushed leaves after rain. There was a pulse in every drop as if the grove still breathed inside it. That pulse is gone now. The reason isn't mystery, it's math. Carapelli, now part of the same corporate group as Bertolli under Diolio, scaled up production to serve shelves from Florence to Florida. The design grew more elegant as the oil grew less alive. In 2010, a University of California Davis study found that Carapelli's extra virgin oils failed both sensory and chemical standards: oxidation, poor freshness, and lower phenolic content than required. 6 years later, Italian authorities fined the company for misleading origin claims and unfair trade practices. On paper, those issues were resolved. In the bottle, the damage lingers. For loyal customers, it wasn't just about chemistry, it was heartbreak. Many had grown up seeing Carapelli on their parents' counters, a sign of taste and refinement. One Florence chef who'd used it for decades told a journalist, "Carapelli used to taste like the wind on the hill, now it tastes like air-conditioned light." He meant it as both poetry and pain. Online, the sentiment echoes that grief. On review pages, you find lines like "still smooth but not alive" or "beautiful, bottle dull flavor." One Texas buyer wrote, "I bought it for the bottle that says enough. Even when the oil isn't defective, it feels detached, like a luxury product that's forgotten its purpose. It's food made to be seen, not felt." And that's the real tragedy, not that the oil is bad, but that it became indifferent. The bottle shines brighter than the grove that birthed it. You can almost sense that in every pore, the perfection of packaging, replacing the imperfection of nature. Carapelli proved that beauty can hide fatigue, and some labels, no matter how elegant, can't mask the silence beneath. Next, we move from design's disguise to marketing's mirage, a brand that sells 100% Italian pride, even when the truth travels far from home. Number 3. Filippo Berio. Carapelli sold beauty, Filippo Berio sold belief. And for one small family in Pisa, that belief began to crack over dinner. It was a peaceful Sunday evening. Marco sat at the kitchen table, the scent of tomato and basil drifting through the air. Elena, his wife, placed down a steaming bowl of pasta al pomodoro, their weekly comfort. He took a bite, lifted his brow, and said softly, "It doesn't taste like home." She hesitated, then smiled bitterly. "It's not the oil we used to buy?" she replied. On the counter, the bottle of Filippo Berio caught the light black label, golden crest bold words imported from Italy. For years, this brand had been part of their rhythm, a drizzle on bread, a splash in soup, small rituals that connected them to something older than recipes. To Italians like Marco and Elena, olive oil wasn't just flavor, it was family history bottled and preserved. But lately, the scent felt duller, the color paler. What once burned softly at the back of the throat now slid through like glass, smooth, clean, and strangely emotionless. The next day, curiosity tugged at Marco's mind. He opened his laptop and typed Filippo Berio authenticity. What he found surprised him. A few years ago, consumers in the United States had sued the company, accusing it of mislabeling 100% Italian oils that actually came from blends of Spain, Greece, and Tunisia. He scrolled further: legal settlements, new packaging, and a promise to be clearer. The brand had since joined the North American Olive Oil Association's certification list, proof of improvement. But still, something in those reports felt heavy, as if the company had traded its orchard soul for corporate passports. Elena walked in, drying her hands. "You're reading about olive oil," she teased. "I just wanted to know," he said quietly. "We trusted it all our lives." He read aloud a line from an importer's interview. "It sells the dream of Tuscany bottled in bulk." Another review from a New York chef caught his eye. "It's not a fraud, it's just too polite." Marco leaned back, remembering how his father used to cough after tasting their local press, that fiery sign of life. "Polite," he muttered. "That's the right word." They sat in silence for a moment. The bottle on the counter seemed to stare back at them, proud, distant, almost royal. Marco poured a spoonful and held it to the light. It looked perfect, but he knew perfection had a price. "Maybe it's not Italy anymore," Elena said softly. "Maybe it's just business." That week, she went to the local market. Rows of imported bottles gleamed under fluorescent lights. She picked up the familiar Filippo Berio, felt its weight, then slowly set it down. Her eyes caught a smaller bottle, local unpolished harvest date printed by hand. She uncapped it, inhaled the sharp, grassy scent, and smiled. That evening, when Marco came home, she poured the new oil over fresh bread. The aroma filled the room alive again. He dipped a piece, tasted it, and nodded without words. Because sometimes even pride loses its passport, and the promise of Italy now comes printed in every language but its own. Number 4. Star olive oil. If an olive oil fails the body as much as it fails the palate, should we still call it extra virgin? That question sits at the heart of Star Olive Oil's story. For years, the brand stood proudly on supermarket shelves, familiar, affordable, and big enough for family kitchens. The bottle gleams gold under store lights, its wide label shouting "Star" in bold confidence. But step beyond the marketing shine, and what you find inside tells a quieter, more clinical truth. In a 2010 report from the University of California, Davis Olive Center Star's extra virgin oil failed both sensory and chemical tests. Lab results showed high peroxide values, a sign the oil was already oxidizing before it reached the table. Oxidation doesn't just dull the flavor. It changes the oil's chemistry, stripping it of polyphenols, vitamin E, and oleocanthal compounds, responsible for the anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects that make olive oil healthy in the first place. When fresh, extra virgin olive oil contains natural antioxidants that help reduce oxidative stress in the body. These compounds improve blood vessel function, protect LDL cholesterol from oxidation, and support normal heart rhythm. But once oil is exposed to light and air, as it often is in Star's transparent bottles, these same nutrients begin to break down. The healthy lipids become unstable. Over time, they form peroxides and aldehydes that no longer help the heart, but may instead burden the liver and increase inflammatory responses. Dr. Mary Flynn, a dietitian at Brown University who studies the Mediterranean diet, once explained the health power of olive oil lies in its freshness. Once oxidized, it behaves like any refined fat. The extra virgin label no longer means protection. That line sums it up perfectly. Olive oil is like fruit juice, it's best when new, worst when stale. Clear bottles and long transport routes turn it from a health food into a neutral fat source at best and an irritant at worst. According to the European Food Safety Authority, olive oils must contain sufficient hydroxytyrosol, a key polyphenol, to support healthy blood lipids. Once that threshold drops, the physiological benefit disappears even if the bottle still says extra virgin. Yet Star continues to rely on wide retail distribution and bulk packaging choices that inevitably trade nutrition for visibility. Biologically, the impact is subtle but steady. Using oxidized oil every day adds calories without antioxidants. It raises total fat intake but contributes little to protecting your cells. Over months, that imbalance weakens HDL efficiency, the good cholesterol that clears arteries and increases oxidative markers in the bloodstream. You may not feel it immediately, but the body keeps the score. So what should you do? Always check for harvest and best before dates. Choose dark glass over clear plastic. Buy smaller bottles if you don't use oil quickly and keep them away from heat or sunlight. Most importantly, don't be afraid of a little bitterness or that slight burn in your throat. That's the oleocanthal talking a sign your oil is still alive. Star olive oil reminds us that nutrition isn't on the label, it's in the chemistry. And chemistry fades faster than trust. Number 5. Pompeian. If Star science gone silent, Pompeian sincerity gone soft. It's the kind of oil you see in diners tucked beside the salt shaker, and red pepper flakes a quiet staple of the American kitchen. The bottle looks proud with its golden label and that little certification seal shining like a medal. It says authentic, certified, trusted. But in the end, even medals can fade. Pompeian built its name not on heritage, but on ambition. Born in Baltimore more than a century ago, it promised to bring the Mediterranean home flavor, health and all. For a while it did. The taste was round, warm, and nutty, like a safe middle ground between strong Italian and light Spanish oils. You could pour it over salad or toss it with pasta without thinking twice. It was the reliable one, the oil that never argued, never shocked. But somewhere in that comfort, it stopped surprising. The company did something rare in this market. It sought accountability. Pompeian joined the North American Olive Oil Association's testing program and even submitted to U.S. Department of Agriculture quality monitoring. It wanted to prove its integrity, and that part deserves respect. But authenticity doesn't always mean vitality. A certified oil can still lose its heart if it sits too long under fluorescent lights, waiting for someone to believe in it. In a small restaurant outside Cleveland, a chef named Dario poured a bit of Pompeian into a white ramekin, rubbed it between his fingers and shrugged. "It's clean," he said, "but it doesn't talk." He meant it the way chefs often do. Not about flavor alone, but about presence. "The oil should tell you where it came from," he added. "This one just tells me it's safe." He's not wrong. The oil feels smooth, balanced, but hollow. There's no whisper of grass, no pepper catching your throat, no story lingering in the aftertaste. It's polite, just like a waiter who smiles, serves, and leaves without ever making eye contact. In the rush to guarantee purity, something human got lost. Another restaurant owner, Linda, who runs a family trattoria in Boston, said she still keeps Pompeian in her pantry. "It's predictable," she told me. "Customers don't complain. But my father would." Then she laughed. He'd say, "If it doesn't sting your throat a little, it's lying to you." There's truth in that. Real olive oil should have life, a pulse, a reminder of the tree, the soil, the hand that pressed it. Pompeian is honest on paper, but quiet on the tongue. It has the structure of integrity, but not the taste of conviction. And maybe that's its tragedy, not failure, but fatigue. In trying to be trustworthy for everyone, it forgot to be memorable for anyone. When Dario finished tasting, he wiped his hands and said almost kindly, "It's not bad. It's just asleep." The bottle stood there, golden and steady, catching the last light through the kitchen window, pure, perfect, and silent. 5 bottles down, a pattern begins to appear. The names change, the promises shift, but the silence stays the same. What began as a story of flavor turned into one of fatigue, heritage replaced by handling freshness traded for reach. We've seen ambition, beauty, pride, and science all bend under the same weight profit over patience. But not every label lost its way. Somewhere between the factories and the groves, a few makers still chose honesty over illusion, pressing slower, bottling smaller, and letting the oil speak again. Now it's time to meet the ones that still remember. Number 6. California Olive Ranch. Among the noise of imports and labels, one quiet grove in California chose a different path to grow honesty, not illusion. California Olive Ranch began with a simple promise: keep olive oil close to its roots, literally. In a world of cargo ships and corporate blends, they kept their fields within a day's reach of the mill. The bottles are simple: matte green glass, clear harvest date, no crest or gold crown. Just the land, the year, and the pride. The difference shows the moment you twist the cap. The aroma hits first fresh-cut grass, a faint note of apple skin, a touch of artichoke. Then the flavor, a clean bitterness that rolls across the tongue, before turning smooth with that gentle, peppery tickle in the throat that tells you the oil is alive. Even its color speaks quietly, not neon gold, but a deep green-yellow like sunlight through leaves. California Olive Ranch. COR mills and bottles domestically within hours of harvest, often before sunrise. Cold mechanical extraction preserves its polyphenols, the antioxidants responsible for anti-inflammatory and heart-protective effects. Independent reviews from Consumer Reports and Serious Eats in recent years have repeatedly confirmed its consistency and freshness, something rare in a market built on distance and delay. Yet, perfection never comes without cost. A 750 milliliter bottle of COR often sells between $15 and $20, nearly double the price of the average supermarket oil. And that raises a fair question: is honesty affordable for everyone? Many shoppers still reach for cheaper imports because they've learned to accept good enough. COR doesn't compete on price, it competes on time, the shortest distance from branch to bottle. Still, even this grove isn't immune to pressure. Droughts across California have tightened harvest yields, and critics note that some blends labeled Global Blend include oils from Argentina or Chile during shortfall years. COR discloses those sources, but transparency doesn't erase disappointment. Purists say it softens the brand's original message. The company replies that honesty also means admitting when nature needs help. A farmer from the ranch once said, "We don't chase the world, we just chase the sunrise." Harvest starts before the heat wakes up. You can taste that philosophy in the oil itself, alive, clean, unapologetic. In a small restaurant in Monterey, a chef drizzled it over grilled bread and smiled. "This is the one oil I don't hide behind sauces," he said. "It has its own voice. That voice costs more, and maybe it should." Real craftsmanship takes time. Water and care, 3 things. Industry always tries to shorten. COR reminds us that not every shortcut saves. The price isn't just for flavor, but for truth, for knowing exactly where your oil began. California Olive Ranch proved something simple: that purity isn't about price or passport, but about time and care. And sometimes that's the only kind of luxury worth keeping. Number 7. Cobram Estate. For this last one, I'll tell you my favorite. I eat with it almost every week over grilled vegetables, pasta, even my morning eggs, and never once have I felt a hint of disappointment. It's called Cobram Estate, and for me it's more than a bottle. It's a small reminder that real craftsmanship still exists in a market full of noise. Every time I pour it, I notice how it behaves, how the stream lands thick and steady, how it glows a deep golden green, how the scent rises even before the food hits the plate. It's grassy and floral with that unmistakable sharp tickle in the throat that only truly fresh oil gives. Cobram's story began in Australia on the banks of the Murray River, where the sun runs long and the soil holds just enough hardship to make the olives strong. From there, the company expanded to California, bringing the same method: cold, pressing within 4 hours of harvest dark glass bottles to block light, and a clear label that actually means what it says. It's one of the few global producers that still insists on single origin batches harvested and milled in the same region. Their results speak for themselves. Cobram Estate has won gold and best-in-class awards at the New York International Olive Oil Competition multiple years in a row, praised not just for flavor, but for polyphenol stability. The very compounds that make olive oil a heart-protective food rather than just fat. The process is almost obsessive. Sensors measure fruit temperature during milling. Nitrogen replaces oxygen during bottling to prevent oxidation. You can taste that control, the balance between human touch and modern precision. But to be fair, it's not for everyone. The price runs high, around $20 to $25 a bottle, and its flavor can shock people used to mild supermarket oils. It's grassy, bitter, bold, and sometimes almost spicy. For some, that's too much honesty, but to me, that's the point. That peppery kick tells you the oil still has life, still full of antioxidants that haven't faded under heat or time. And I'm not alone. A chef in Los Angeles once told me Cobram doesn't whisper, it sings. A grower in Melbourne said, "We bottle mornings, you can smell the sunlight in it." On an online food forum, a home cook wrote, "I switched from Bertolli to Cobram, and suddenly my salad tasted like food again." Another commented, half joking, "It's the only oil that makes me sneeze and smile at the same time." Those voices remind me that authenticity doesn't have to be nostalgic, it just has to be honest. Cobram doesn't chase history, it continues it. The people behind it don't try to sell a story, they live one season after season, harvest after harvest, pressing truth into every drop. So if you've ever wondered whether good olive oil makes a difference, try this one once. Pour a little over fresh bread, close your eyes, and let that warmth rise in your throat. That's not marketing. That's life pressed alive and still speaking through the olive tree itself. Cobram doesn't chase nostalgia, it honors it by keeping oil alive even after it leaves the grove. Olive oil was never meant to be a mystery. It was meant to be simple fruit time and care. And after everything we've uncovered, it's clear that some bottles forgot that truth while a few still hold onto it. Cobram Estate and California Olive Ranch remind us that purity doesn't come from prestige, it comes from patience. Yes, real oil costs more, and yes, its taste can surprise bitter peppery alive, but that sharpness is honesty. It's the flavor of a tree still speaking. So if you've made it this far, here's what matters most. Protect that taste. Keep it away from heat light and long storage. Choose freshness over fame, harvest date over design. Because in every drop of true olive oil, there's a promise that nature, when left unaltered, still knows how to care for us better than we care for it.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.